Let's be honest about something many people quietly notice. There is a certain kind of older man who naturally draws women in, and it rarely has anything to do with wealth, physical appearance, or pretending to be younger than he really is. The attraction runs deeper than that. It's subtle, calm, and surprisingly powerful. These are the men who don't walk into a room trying to impress anyone. They aren't loud, flashy, or desperate to be noticed. Yet something shifts when they're present. Women often feel the effect before they can even explain it. It isn't wild excitement or dramatic intensity. It feels more like a quiet pull, almost magnetic. This kind of attraction isn't mysterious or random. It follows very real psychological patterns connected to female psychology, the nervous system, and the way attachment works between people. What you're about to understand are 4 behaviors certain older men naturally display, sometimes without even realizing it, that consistently spark desire in women. Not just momentary interest or polite friendliness, but real attraction that makes a woman want to remain close. A lot of modern dating advice simply doesn't apply to men who have already lived through real relationships. Most of it is designed for younger men just beginning to date. It focuses on tactics like sending the perfect text, waiting the right amount of time to reply, creating artificial mystery, or playing strategic games. But once a man has experienced long relationships, heartbreak, growth, and rebuilding his life, those strategies often stop working. In many cases, they actually work against him. At that stage in life, women are no longer reacting to surface-level tricks. They respond to something deeper. They respond to emotional consistency, to a sense of grounded direction, and to a balance between safety and intrigue. They are drawn to men who clearly know themselves and where they stand. Unfortunately, this is where many older men unknowingly miss the mark. They assume that being stable is
enough. They believe that being kind, responsible, and serious should naturally create attraction. Curious. But desire doesn't activate simply because someone has good moral qualities. Desire responds to emotional signals. A man can look perfect on paper and still feel neutral to a woman's nervous system.
That's why some women say words that confuse many men. You're a great guy, but I just don't feel anything. What they're really describing is not a logical decision. It's a physical response. Her body simply isn't reacting. Attraction begins in the nervous system before the mind ever explains it. And that response tends to be triggered by 4 core elements. The first one is also the most commonly misunderstood. Some older men carry a calm, grounded confidence. Not the loud kind that demands attention, and not arrogance or forced dominance. It's quieter than that. It feels steady. These men don't feel the need to constantly prove themselves. They don't over-explain their choices, defend every opinion, or justify their emotions. They speak clearly and simply. They listen carefully without losing their sense of self. They don't try to persuade people to like them. Psychologically, this creates a very specific reaction. When a man communicates calmly without constantly defending himself or seeking approval, the female brain registers emotional stability. The part of the brain associated with detecting threat begins to relax. When that sense of safety appears, attraction has room to grow. On the other hand, when a man explains too much, reassures too quickly, or constantly tries to clarify every thought, it can unintentionally signal insecurity. Even if his intentions are genuine, excessive explanation can feel like a search for validation or control. A man who is centered within himself doesn't need to convince anyone of who he is. His behavior already communicates it. That quiet self-assurance creates something many women describe as presence. And that presence becomes deeply attractive, especially for women who have already experienced emotional chaos in the past and no longer want it. Women who have lived through enough relationships eventually lose interest in emotionally reactive men. What they value instead are men who can stay steady within themselves. This connects directly to the second principle. Many women feel drawn to men who already have a complete life of their own. Not a life that looks busy just to impress others, and not a man pretending to be unavailable. A genuinely full life. A life built around routines, responsibilities, passions, and personal direction. When an older man quickly places a woman at the center of his entire world, the result is often the opposite of what he hopes for. Instead of creating closeness, it can create pressure. There is an unspoken emotional weight that begins to form, and desire rarely grows in that kind of atmosphere. Mature women usually don't want to become someone's whole universe. What they want is to become a meaningful part of a life that already has stability and purpose. When a man continues living his life with focus and rhythm, when he has his own commitments and is not constantly available at every moment, it naturally communicates value. This isn't about pretending to be hard to get. It simply reflects that his life already has substance. The human mind instinctively values things that are not instantly accessible. This connects to a basic dopamine response. Dopamine isn't triggered by the reward itself, but by the anticipation of it. A man who doesn't rush emotional closeness, who allows attraction to grow naturally instead of forcing it, creates that sense of anticipation. Over time, he becomes more interesting and more believable. His behavior shows that he isn't searching for someone to fill an emptiness in his life. Instead, he is inviting someone to share something that already exists. For many women, that feeling is deeply comforting. The third element is something older men often overlook. It's the ability to stay lighthearted and playful without any sense of neediness. Many men become overly serious as they grow older. They focus on being respected, responsible, and taken seriously. But they sometimes forget that attraction still needs a sense of playfulness. This doesn't mean crude jokes or over-the-top flirting. It's much more
subtle than that. It might be holding eye contact a little longer than usual, sharing a relaxed smile that expects nothing in return, or making a gentle, teasing comment that simply creates a moment of fun. The key difference is that there is no pressure behind it. When a man can flirt or joke without needing validation, it creates a relaxed atmosphere, and that ease is incredibly appealing. From a psychological perspective, this lowers the brain's defensive systems. A woman doesn't feel pushed, expected, or claimed. Instead, she feels invited. That small difference completely changes the emotional dynamic.
Women who have been through serious relationships are often tired of heavy conversations, hidden expectations, and emotional tension. When an older man stays relaxed and playful without creating pressure, he becomes rare. It signals emotional strength because it shows he can hold attraction without turning it into anxiety. Very few men manage this balance. The fourth, and perhaps most powerful element, is having clear personal standards. Not harsh demands, not threats or ultimatums, simply standards. A man who knows what he accepts in his life and what he does not. When a man can calmly step away from situations that don't align with him, without anger or drama, it sends a very strong message. It shows that he respects himself, and self-respect has a powerful pull. From an attachment perspective, this creates a clear emotional structure. A woman senses that this man does not depend on her for his emotional stability. Interestingly, that independence often
Increases attraction. Desire rarely moves toward dependency. It tends to move towards strength and stability. A man with standards doesn't argue endlessly or try to control outcomes. He simply acts according to his values. When his words consistently match his actions, trust naturally grows, and trust gives desire a place to exist without fear.
When these four qualities come together, quiet confidence, a life with real depth, playful energy without neediness, and clear personal standards, something powerful forms. It becomes a kind of emotional leadership. Not control, not dominance, but inner leadership. These men aren't trying to lead women. They lead themselves. And that is exactly the kind of energy many women are unconsciously looking for. Not perfection, not flashy success, but alignment. A man whose presence feels both calming and attractive at the same time. That is why some women find themselves forming deep attachments to men like this.